Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, permanent secretaries, colleague ministers, and of course, those viewing on social media. This morning, I want to give a few updates on ministerial portfolios that I am honored to hold. And I want to start first and foremost with the Jamaica Public Service renegotiation. I didn't think that I would need to after the standing finance in Parliament, but it seems that I do. So again, let me reiterate. Formal notification was sent to the Jamaica Public Service on November 4th, 2024, to advise them of the initiation of the renegotiation of their license, which expires in 2027. It is required that we indicate to them prior to July 2025. We did so in November 2024, many months ahead of the time. And this I mentioned in the Standing Finance Committee, that we also had engaged expert assistance for this undertaking with the renegotiation of the JPS license. The support is now in place. The team has had several meetings with first and foremost stakeholders, and I had my first meeting with them on April 4th, 2025. That will be the consulting firm, FMA, from the United Kingdom, who has submitted its inception report, which was discussed during my meeting. The recent impact of Hurricane Beryl on the electricity sector has provided the most recent lessons and has highlighted the basis for change in the sector. Global and economic conditions have significantly changed since the original JPS license was issued in 2001. So the terms of the license in 2001 were not appropriate in 2015 when it was again renegotiated to 2027. And even more so today in 2025. With that in mind, I intend to have formal discussions at the highest level of the JPS management team with a view of a mutually beneficial agreement. I am again reiterate, I am committed to ensuring these negotiations are productive and have an amicable settlement achieved in the best interest of the Jamaican people. I have brought the letter because it seems like some people still don't get it. This is a letter, November 12, 2004, signed by my permanent secretary to the JPS president. This is my first report from the consultants, and it says findings from FMA work to date for discussions with the Honorable Daryl Vaz, April 2025. If I'm not mistaken, I think we are in 2025 now. So I want to make that very clear. And we do have choices to make in the very near future. And I would posit it that the Jamaican people must decide whether they want Daryl Vaz on behalf of the Andrew Onis administration to renegotiate or Philip Paulwell from the opposition. I think that choice is quite clear. Let me move on now. Certificate of Fitness Program mentioned in the Prime Minister's presentation. On March 27th, the Prime Minister announced changes to the Certificate of Fitness Program in his budget presentation. 2 weeks ago, shortly after his presentation, a multi-agency team led by my ministry to determine the steps and actions to be taken to implement the policy change. In addition, provisions are to be made for motorists to license their vehicles for up to 2 years at a time. The team is working on a technology solution to integrate the fitness and registration systems enabling the Jamaica Constabulary Force to access all necessary vehicle information via the license plate. This will require amendments to the road traffic regulations to give effect to these changes. The projected implementation time for this is within the next 2 to 3 months. Between June and July is what I have mandated my permanent secretary. It is important to clarify that contrary to some media and social media reports, the policy position announced by the Prime Minister does not currently exist in our legislation. Existing provisions allow 6 months for commercial vehicles and a maximum of 2 years for all other vehicles. Let me again, for clarity, state that there will be no fee increase in this policy change. So the extension of the time for your registration and your certificate of fitness will not come at an additional cost. Currently, legislation allows for up to 2 years. For the new policy, new vehicles will be up for 5 years. So from you purchase a new vehicle, your fitness will be allowed for 5 years. In relation to 3 years old cars, unless those will be for 3 years, and anything over 3 years old will be up to 2 years. So there will be 3 classifications rather than what obtains now, which, as we know, is quite tedious. The good thing is that we are going to use technology to drive this. So the days of the stickers on your car and the paper certificate of fitness and all that goes with it are a thing of the past. We're going to use this opportunity now, since there has to be legislative changes, to just do everything at one time. That would include getting a driver's license, where you go to the depot, and depending on what methodology you wish to use, is how fast you get through. Whether you wait months, or whether you wait a few minutes or a few hours, all depending on who you see and who you talk to. We're going to move away from that, where you make your appointment online, and only those people that have appointments on that particular day and that particular time will be allowed to go into the depot for that particular exam. So again, for those of us who have young children, teenagers just becoming eligible for driver's license, you all know what takes place in terms of that process. So the fact is that when we do this and you go to the examination depot, with all the changes that we make, you should really only just see, those persons that are employed there, and not those that are outside on the periphery hustling you to give you the service that the government should give you automatically. Another one that is of huge concern, not only as it relates to road use, but national security, is the management of the demonstration plates. Those are the blue plates. You'll have seen on social media a terrible accident involving a Mercedes-Benz coming from a party, killing 4 people that had on a DC plate. DC plate is used for the trade, the automobile trade, in relation to moving cars from the wharf, demonstrating the cars for sale, etc. So there's a growing concern about the widespread misuse of demonstration plates in Jamaica. In many places, these plates are not being used as intended under the Road Traffic Act and associated regulations. Disturbingly, there's credible evidence that demonstration plates are being exploited by individuals to facilitate criminal activities. Compounding the issue, the police are currently unable to trace these plates through their smart check system. Currently, Tax Administration in Jamaica does not have an accurate count of the demonstration plates currently in circulation. This gap in oversight has created opportunities for cloning and unauthorized use by criminal elements. As a result, the government is losing revenue, and the lack of control over this system poses a serious threat to public safety and national security. To address these challenges, legislative amendments will be required to overhaul the system and support a more secure, transparent, and accountable demonstration plate regime. I like to show you the documents, because some people don't believe that ministers work. So everything that I speak to you about, there's a document to support it in relation to the work that has been done by these hard-working technocrats within the ministries. So this one here is the software changes to facilitate the Motor Vehicle Policy Directive. This is April 4th, 2025. In light of the above observations, the government will embark on a total revamp of the current system and replace it with a web-based demonstrated permit system. Dealers are able to access demonstration plates as required, and the authorities are better able to enforce and monitor compliance with little resources. The benefits to the government and Jamaicans: ease in administration, management, and enforcement, dealer online application, the ability to specify usage of permits, and printed permits, which will have a QR code for enforcement verification. Again, this is a work in progress, and here we have a document, again, says Subcommittee on Demonstration Plates Interim Report. Everything is driven by information, collaboration, consensus. And this one here, on my return from traveling last week, the minister's brief on proposed management of demonstration plates. So this is not driven from the minister down. This is driven from the technocrats and the stakeholders up. So we can easily develop this demonstration plate process at a minimal cost. So far it is looking like about 10 million Jamaican dollars, and we can do this again within a few months, obviously taking into consideration that there will be a procurement requirement. For the design and implementation of the management system, a total recall of existing plates, which a deadline will be issued, submission of the legislative changes, and of course finalize new fee structure. More good news. I don't come here often, so when I come, I just give you everything one time. I don't have the time to come every week or every other week. Revised age public passenger vehicle importation policy. On April 7th, which was on Monday, Cabinet approved the amendments of the 2014 Motor Vehicle Import Policy as it relates to public passenger vehicles to include the following. For the public passenger transport sector, imported vehicles with seating capacity not exceeding 8 persons must not be older than 10 years, up from 8 years. Imported vehicles with seating capacity between 12 and 15 persons must not be older than 15 years. And imported vehicles without seating capacity between 26 and 32 seats must not be older than 15 years. So let me give you a background as somebody who is familiar with this industry. The average age of the public transportation vehicles that we see on the road with the red plates is 15 years old. So they are aged, they are not fuel efficient, they have been on the roads for many years, and they are not giving the comfort and efficiency to the commuters. We had imposed a policy in 2019 where we had made amendments specifically for the public transportation sector. For whatever reason, the full benefit did not reach to the taxi operator because he would either have to go to the dealer and buy them at a higher markup or whatever it was. So in doing this, I took into consideration the advice from the Public Transportation Steering Committee, which I formed when I became minister in 23. What does this do for the public passenger operator, public vehicle operator? He has the option to apply for an import license in his company's name or his personal name. He has the option to import that vehicle directly by going online to the auctions, going to direct to suppliers in Japan or wherever else, and buy it at source, which means that he's not being held to the point of where he has to pay additional cost to dealers, middlemen, whoever you call it. Before, you had to use a tax association that you were a member of. Now, you have the option, if you so desire, to go directly and handle your transaction on your own. Huge difference. If it is that they cannot do that for one reason or the other, they don't have a tax compliance certificate, or they don't have the money up front to buy the car and they need to finance it, they still have the ability to get the license and to use the license to negotiate with a dealer, with a bank, whoever it is, for a specific vehicle. So that is the main difference that will make the difference to make sure that every transport operator, regardless of whether he's a member of association, he has a license on his own, as long as he's compliant and registered with the transport authority, and he pays his taxes, that he can qualify to get a tax compliance certificate, he's good to go. The other option, as I said before, is that dealers will be able to stock cars specifically, and remember that this is a special age for a special category. So you don't go onto the lots and get cars that are specially approved for a specific year. If my memory serves me correct, I think PS Temple is here, the current regular policy outside of public transport is up to 7 years old. I think it's up to 7 years old. So you have a 3-year window specifically for the public transportation. So those persons who can't, for whatever reason, will be in a position to go and get vehicles, to be able to get financing off of lots, which will save significant amount of time. So I think that the increase in the age, which will be for 2 years, it's not open-ended, because this has other repercussions. This policy will be for 2 years, allowing every transport operator to benefit from an additional increase in age limit specific for the public transportation. The Transport Authority will be responsible to communicate and coordinate with the Trade Board for the issuance of these licenses. So the Transport Authority will be the main first point of access, and then they will communicate. But again, I'm heartened because I know the complaints, and I know that the 2019 policy did not go far enough to make sure that these persons would have been able to benefit directly and not have to pay the middleman or the dealer markups. Quick one on, still on Transport Authority. Transport Authority has partnered with the St. Ann Municipal Corporation to construct a long-awaiting taxi car park in Discovery Bay for taxi operators plying the routes Discovery Bay to Falmouth, Discovery Bay to Brownstown, Discovery Bay to Runaway Bay, Discovery Bay to Farmtown, Discovery Bay to St. Anne's Bay, and the surrounding areas. The facility, as it stands now, will serve as a main terminal point for over 250 taxis operating in that area. The land that is going to be utilized was gifted to the St. Ann Municipal Corporation as a gift from Noranda Bauxite, and based on engineering and construction estimates, a little under $10 million. This will be a joint venture partnership between the Transport Authority, the St. Ann Municipal Corporation, and Norando. We would know that up to recently, a stoplight was erected right in Discovery Bay by the gas station at that intersection, which was a death trap. And those of you who travel that route would know that the taxis were parked in every plaza and every gas station and on the roads all around there because, in fairness, they had nowhere else to go. So I went there and I made a commitment, and the commitment is going to be delivered. The land has already been transferred, and we are now in the final stages of the plans to erect this facility. South Parade Car Park. The KSAMC has agreed with the Transport Authority to convert the South Parade Car Park into a taxi car park. This new car park will be the terminal point for 4 route taxi routes. The facility will help in alleviating the chronic traffic congestion in downtown Kingston, and some amount of retrofitting is required, and the authorities are working collaboratively to identify sources of funding. More importantly, conversion of 11 JUTC routes to route taxi routes. Transport Authority and JUTC have finalized the conversion of 11 JUTC routes to route taxi routes. During this licensing period, the authority has commenced accepting applications for these routes to allow Hackney carriage operators to convert to route taxis and provide legitimate service along these routes, remove the element of conflict with the authorities and the risk of associated with prosecution and seizure of vehicles for operating contrary to their road licenses, provide for the attachment of approved fare structure for these routes, and provide reliable means of transport for the traveling public. Application opened in March. The steering committee is also looking and has in front of the JUTC an additional 12 routes for taxis. That request is under consideration. Well, it was up until now because it's approved. And the KSAMC are exploring parking arrangements at the Pichon Street Transportation Center. These 12 additional routes that are under consideration for Hackney operators who have been providing public transportation service on these routes for some time now. This will ensure that the taxi operators have the right to an appropriate fee structure. So again, and I'm going to get to that now, there's this feeling that the JUTC is competing against the public transportation operators. Absolutely not. What we are doing is streamlining and making sure that what JUTC can manage because they don't have the fleet, rather than holding it as exclusive, they release it so that new routes, so that will be 23 new routes in the KMTR. 23 new routes. Just think about what that will do to expand the ability for commuters to travel and also operators to earn. Let's go to the big one now. The rural school bus service. Following the Prime Minister's announcement of the rural school bus service, preparations are advancing. This will be a joint initiative between the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, and the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport. We have a meeting immediately after this, since I knew Minister Dixon would be here and our PS and team, and my PS and team. So we won't waste any time. We'll finish this, we'll go straight into that meeting. So, let me outline just quickly what we are trying to achieve. The Ministry of Transport will be responsible for managing the buses. Ministry of Education will be required to find the funding for the buses and also to provide the routes for the buses. You will see outside one of the test buses that we brought in, which JUTC has tested, approved, and the bottom line is that this first 100 buses, 50 of which I hope to get here within the next 60 days, will be used for the major corridors. And once we have the major corridors figured out, then of course we move into the interiors. Based on the numbers of students and schools, which I just want to give you so we can put things in perspective as it relates to the task that is ahead of us. So we have 162 remote rural schools with 15,168 students. We have 440 rural schools with 105,000 students. And urban schools, we have 379 of those with 257,000 students. So it simply means that the JUTC and the Ministry of Education, in starting this program, it will take some time to be able to really have the impact that we want, which means that there will still be a place for the public passenger vehicles to operate. The fact is that as of now, in rural Jamaica, the average cost for a student for one-way route is about $100, as against for adults, $200 and upwards. So that is why you find that the public passenger operators are reluctant to take the school children, and if they do, they take them as additional to what the vehicle holds in terms of regular adults. So they are what left, which causes reckless driving, speeding to get them off to go back to make up for the shortfall, and what we want to do is simply separate them. We want to separate the children. So it is not an incentive, or the public passenger operators are not incentivized to take children. They are disincentivized, and therefore that's why they only get transportation if there is not a full vehicle of adults, and if there is, they will put three of them in the trunk. And you see them hanging out at the back. So I want to make it very clear that this is not a business opportunity for the government. This is a moral responsibility of any well-thinking government to finally address this decade-old problem. And I'm going to address it. It's not going to happen overnight, but I'm going to address it. You just think what these buses will do with a driver that is cleared by the security forces, that is trained by the JUTC, that has a cashless system, so the part students swipe and the parents load up the card for the concessionary rate for the children, and an app where you can track the bus so parents can know at all times where their children are, and the JUTC and the government can know whether the driver is driving correctly, what he's doing, what he's not doing. These buses will be used in the mornings and in the afternoons. Any bus that is seen outside of those hours is going to have a problem, because it is a school bus for rural school children, nobody else. The same regulations that apply to the school when you are on school property extends to the bus. Teachers will be assigned based on where they live to travel on the bus to make sure that what obtains on the bus is what we want for our children. So this is a game changer. And with Minister Dixon, we're going to work on it. We're going to get the 50 buses here. We're going to run them through length and breadth of Jamaica to make sure that The specifications are right and they are fully approved by JUTC. But for September morning, the other 50, and we move on. The good thing about it, and Minister Hill made a point, and I'm passionate, so I want you to bear with me. We are spending, because of our fiscal discipline over the years and our gains, billions, tens of billions of dollars on roads, on water, on everything else, infrastructural-wise. These buses, refurbished buses, that hold up to 70, 75 kids, will cost the government of Jamaica $50,000 US approximately, 7.5 million Jamaican dollars per bus. You tell me if it's not time for Jamaica to invest in the children of Jamaica for the future by virtue of investing the same levels of capital that we are doing in so many other areas that are badly in need, well deserved, but this, to me, must become the focus and the priority of the government to make sure that we can put enough buses into the system to make sure that children can go safely to school and be in a better frame of mind to learn. The last thing I say on this is that existing arrangements that schools have for transportation PS troop, I know there are many schools that have their own private arrangements, those will be uninterrupted. As a matter of fact, I encourage them to buy some of these buses and help, because this is not only a government initiative, this has great private sector investment potential, save and except for the fact that the same concessions that apply for the thousands of students in Kingston and St. Andrew, Portmore and Spanish Town will be passed on through the JUTC to the rural school bus system. There will be equity and fairness. Currently now, part students get a subvention through the Ministry of Labor to Ministry of Education. They pay nothing on the local JUTC system. Others pay between 20 and 50 Jamaican dollars, depending on the route. Those will be passed on to the rural school bus system to allow for fairness, equity, and affordability. Currently, $300 to $600 per trip times 2 per student for every rural parent. Unaffordable, especially if you have more than 2, 3, 4, some have even more than that. To the point of where I come from a rural constituency, I live it, I know it. I didn't grow up in the country. And I didn't take a school bus, but I've been a representative for 17 years. In some cases, parents have to evaluate the children, assess them as to which one they think has the best potential to succeed, and choose that one to invest in them, to buy them the school books, to pay the school fee, to pay the lunch money, pay the bus fare, and the other 3 stay at home and may go to school occasionally. There's no society that can grow like that. So I'm passionate, and I want to say that we will get it done. Can't close without talking about road safety, national road safety, very briefly. As you know, Cabinet has approved a 5% allocation from traffic fines to be dedicated to MSET. This funding will help us engage an international communication expert with a proven track record in effective road safety campaigns. The procurement process begins this month with an expected timeline of 2 to 3 months. Additionally, the ministry will procure helmets that meet the specifications of the Road Traffic Act, and this will be distributed to licensed motorcycles operators. At the same time, the ministry is pressing forward with the pedestrian safety program using a multi-ministry, multi-agency approach. To date, adult pedestrian fatalities remain a major concern, among the categories of road users. Following discussions with the JCF and MSET, the aim is to partner with the Constabulary Communication Network to enhance our ongoing public education campaign, which we launched in February 2025. While March 30th marked the deadliest day since the start of the year, there have been 7 days where at least 5 people have died in traffic accidents. The recent spike in road crashes highlights the urgent need for targeted interventions, strengthening enforcement, improving public education, and fast-tracking legislative and technological reforms, which are critical to reversing this trend and saving lives. The period, April 1st, 24 to March 31st, 25, there was a noticeable decline in fatalities. Not good enough. Still, too many people losing their lives on the roads on a daily basis. And the ministry and the government is committed to address this with the funds that we are now getting. I think when I spoke to PS yesterday, we should get between $100 and $150 billion from the traffic fines that were previously earmarked only for the Ministry of National Security, Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Justice. Yet still, MSET had responsibility for national road safety with no budget allocation. Well, that has changed, and I think that with those funds, we can make a real impact in getting into the psyche of these drivers to understand that they have precious lives that they are responsible for when they go about their daily business. So I hope this was interesting. I hope that I have more good news in a few weeks to give you. But I'm sure that I have at least 1 week in the new cycle.
I am pretty
Thank you very
sure
much.
of that.
God bless you.
Thank you.